For the fourth consecutive day, Israel and Iran have been locked in that fierce missile exchange. Despite growing calls for restraint, the war is escalating. Here's a quick look at the key developments. Iran has launched a new wave of missile strikes on Israel, triggering air raid sirens across the country. Emergency services reported at least 5 killed and dozens more injured. On the other hand, the IDF has released video showing surface-to-air missile launch troops and the dismantling of the launcher in Iran. Israel claims it has achieved aerial superiority over Tehran after large-scale strikes on Sunday night. In a social media post, the Israeli Prime Minister stated that the force controls the skies over Tehran with strikes targeting regime sites and not the civilians. This comes after Israeli military spokesperson said that the IDF hit several key sites in Iran's capital, destroying a third of the country's surface-to-surface missiles. The IDF says it struck around 100 military targets in Iran. The military says it killed the head of the Revolutionary Guard's intelligence branch and his deputy. Meanwhile, Iranian media are reporting that an Israeli strike in Kermanshah seriously damaged Farabi Hospital. And some time back, Israel's military claimed it struck command centers in Tehran belonging to Iran's Quds force with precise direction from the intelligence directorate. It says the targets were located in the Iranian capital. And latest satellite images showing extensive damage to key Iranian nuclear and missile facilities following a series of Israeli airstrikes. The images show destruction at the Natanz and Isfahan nuclear sites with several above-ground buildings and missile bases. Iran vowing to carry out more devastating operations against Israeli targets. Iran's Revolutionary Guards in a statement saying operations against the vital targets in Israel will continue until its complete destruction. The Israeli defense minister has warned that residents of Tehran will pay the price for the attack on civilians in Israel. In a post on X, Katz accused Iran of deliberately targeting civilians in Israel and added that residents in Tehran will pay the price soon. And the IAEA chief has said there has been no indication of a physical attack on the underground section of Iran's Natanz uranium enrichment site. Although the main Natanz plant's power supply was destroyed, but there is no sign of further damage at the Natanz or for the enrichment facilities.
There has been no additional damage at the Natanz fuel enrichment plant's site since the Friday attack, which destroyed the above-ground part of the pilot fuel enrichment plant, one of the plants at which Iran was producing uranium enriched up to 60% U-235. No damage has been seen at the site of the Fordow fuel enrichment plant or at the Kondab heavy water reactor, which is under construction.
And let's now go straight across to Mohammad Samir Khedr, who is executive editor, Daily News Egypt, and political analyst. Thanks very much for being here. I have to begin by asking you for your assessment of the impact so far on Egypt and the immediate concerns on the ground there. Of course, we've been looking at the reports talking about the energy strain, also the impact on the markets there and the airspace.
It's a pivotal moment, and frankly, the stakes for the entire region couldn't be higher. In Egypt's case, of course, the current conflict has impacted the energy because, as you know, all the natural gas that was being exported from Israel has now stopped, and Egypt depends on different sources of energy imports. One of them is the Israeli gas. Also, you have the risk of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, in which a fifth of the world oil flows. Technically, it's now a live war zone. If the strait is closed, this carries high risk to the global economy, not only Egypt or the Middle Eastern economy, because we can see the price of oil skyrocketing. It can reach, to some analysis, believe that it might reach around $200 a barrel if this happens. However, beside the economic and military chaos, there is the ultimate existential threat, which is the nuclear danger. Israeli strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities carry the immediate fear of a radiological catastrophe. A damaged reactor or a hit on a nuclear storage site in either Iran or Israel through the Iranian missiles could release a plume of radiation that would contaminate the entire region for generations. If this happens, we could be facing a regional Chernobyl, an environmental and human disaster of unimagined scale. For Egypt, this is a security threat and also a kind of existential threat. Egypt believes that the path forward is an immediate and conditional ceasefire. This conflict has to stop as fast as possible before it can spiral further and drag other countries and the whole region and the global economy into chaos.
So, on that point, what is the likelihood, according to you, of that really happening? And how will that happen? According to some of the experts we've been speaking to, the assessment is that the only man who can actually make that happen is US President Donald Trump. Do you agree with that? And how optimistic are you that will happen, and the role of the United States here?
Before we can say that this is achievable, we need to be brutally honest about how we got here. While Iran is without question a notorious and destabilizing actor in the Middle East, but in this specific catastrophic conflict, Israel was the initiator. The conflict was initiated by Israel's decision to launch a massive preemptive strike. And critically, this took place right in the middle of Iranian-US nuclear talks. So, going back to your question, yes, this cannot be achieved without the pressure of the US on their ally, Israel, to put a stop to the current conflict. As Iran has said, they are not willing to go into talks before a ceasefire, or at least any stop of the attacks, was achieved on the ground. So the first step, if this is going to be materialized, is that US President Donald Trump, as he already said on his Truth Social account, put an end to this conflict and bring both parties to the table. The only here, I believe that, yes, and some pressure also from the European Union on Israel, especially Netanyahu, to stop the attacks and bring both parties to the table.
Right.
To put an end to this conflict.
All right, we're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for joining us with your perspectives here.
Thank you.